The main issue is you'll start asking them. They all have very heavy ESG agendas. They all want to go green by 2050. So the first question is, why can't you? Hi, guys. So first off, thank you for having me. And I wanted to start this talk by a not so friendly note with a piece of information that we should all be aware of, which is at the year 2050, by the year 2050, we should all have reduced the temperature, general temperature, by 1.5 Celsius, which meets the 2050 agenda of most of the countries that have the kind of ESG net zero directions. But the key issue with that is with the current direction of the sustainable products that we create, it's very hard to do that without severe investments and infrastructural changes that would require otherwise many more years and a lot more money than currently being circulated within the sustainability space. So this leads us to the main question or the main topic of this conversation at all. Should we actually start reinventing the wheel? Does it need reinvention? Or should we just focus more on sustaining the current wheel of products? And the way to do that, I wanted to actually resonate this within our own journey at Naturefy of how we started thinking about the creation of a product that could actually solve the plastic issue, but while using the current infrastructures that exists to make the product easily integrated and a lot more scalable. The key idea is when we try to create or when we try to think about sustainable products, the main thing that comes to the mind is that we want something that is made from renewable resource and that could also have a very good end of life. But there is a component in between that is actually the most important that we all miss out, which is its economic viability. And how we create sustainable products that are actually also commercially viable in that sense here heavily relies on the people that are currently using the alternative that you're trying to replace. So if we try and create the plastic alternative, the first person that we should be creating this with is the major plastic manufacturers that exist within the current petroleum industry, the FMCGs, the FMBs, the other people that consume this with the largest possible impact on there is. And the main issue is you'll start asking them. They all have very heavy ESG agendas. They all want to go green by 2050. So the first question is, why can't you? There are a lot of alternatives. There's a lot of viable options out there. So and you're committing billions of dollars to this. So why haven't you been able to crack this? And each and every client of those would have the very similar response, which is the product is very expensive, that we cannot actually scale it across our entire value chain without needing to sell the product at an incredibly higher markup. So when we start looking at the current products that we want to create here, we want to create products that actually are sustainable and that are, most importantly, scalable. And that starts with these kind of questions. When we ask these questions, we'll find the actual solution lies within what are their current needs to go by net zero by 2050. Why are they trying to go net zero? And how can they integrate this with the current products that they already have? So when we thought about plastics, the main issue is right now they have a very heavy infrastructure that already exists for processing. Okay. So I needed to create a product that can actually integrate with the current infrastructures of processing for plastics. So that's the very first thing. The second thing is it needs to be a product that is not made from a petroleum-based derivative. But what are the main sustainable products that are out there that we can actually use at scale without affecting any economic environment for the product or for the raw materials that we use, and that can also be integrated at an end of life that does not rely on any changes in the consumer behavior, which is in our case having the product naturally biodegradable. So we wanted a product that could be bio-based and that has a very sustainable supply chain that would not be affected in terms of price when we use it at scale. And the final thing is the product should have a very good end of life that does not require consumers to start going to recycling infrastructures, or other than that, they just continue on with the regular patterns. While doing that, we needed the product to be cost effective. And that relied on the technology that we started to create. So when we had this kind of entire vision is that these are the steps that we wanted to do that, these are the infrastructures that are currently there, that's what we exactly were building upon. We were working within the current infrastructure, we're working within the current people that are using this infrastructure so that we can actually allow the product to do that at scale. And given such products actually have longer time to market, But the point is, the more time that is invested in research in these kind of products, and that takes a longer time to go to market, while having a commercially sustainable approach to it, leads to a very higher scalability rate than what they would have when they got in at a non-sustainable pace here or with a premium product price, and that eventually the kind of, you could say the revenues that were lost here were eventually distributed. So this leads us to the final question. Should we actually reinvent the wheel or try to actually do something new here? Or should we sustain the current wheel that we have? And that question heavily relies in its answer on your products, on your market. And that is actually the actual question to this panel. I'd like to leave the floor if anyone wants to ask any questions, but other than that, thank you so much for having me.